It's Tuesday, the 6th of August, 2024. And in this evening's show, the first of the new season, we preview this coming season as Blackpool travel south this Saturday to take on Crawley Town in the curtain raiser for our League One campaign. We'll also be discussing all playing staff in and outs over the summer, giving our season predictions and catching up on all the relevant BFC news since the last pod. I'm John Aspinall. This is Seaside's podcast, Extra Time Special, season preview 2024-25. Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Seaside's podcast after our well-deserved summer break. We are back 5 days before the start of the season on the pod this evening. A bit of an old school vibe about this. We've got Nick and Matt Smith, no relation, and Mr. Mitch back from his odyssey in the deepest, darkest climes of Scotland and visiting third division Scottish footballs. Matt, on you?
No, it was lower than third division, John. Fifth tier. It's good. Everyone should do it.
I was busy visiting Germany myself the first time, Matt. I know you're a big German fan, aren't you? I was out there for one of the England games, and I picked the only one that we didn't score in to go to and attend, and it was the one where pints were being chucked at Gareth Southgate at the end. So that was pretty funny seeing that.
Which city was that in again? Remind me.
That was in Cologne. Cologne.
Yeah.
Or Cologne, as they call it over there, don't they?
Cologne, that's right. Yeah.
Cologne, yeah.
Plenty
I didn't even know that.
Plenty of Kolsch when you were there.
I had a bit of it, yeah.
Yeah.
I was like saying, where's? I was looking at the map, going, where's Cologne? I can also see this place called Cologne.
Peter Nelson.
Yeah. Planning the next trip ourselves.
Yeah. You been anywhere nice? Nick the Lake Smith?
I've been to Norway, actually. I've been to the Norwegian fjords on a very big cruise ship. Yes, it was very enjoyable. Basically an eating holiday for a week. It was great. Yeah, and the lakes as usual. Yeah.
Right, everybody, welcome on the stream. It's great to see so many people out there on the chat. With this isn't going out to X anymore because you've got to pay. Apparently, you've got to pay Elon Musk to subscribe to stream on live. So yeah, it should have been going out there, but it's just on Facebook and YouTube. So just the hardcore this evening. Right, season preview. I couldn't remember if we talked about this in the last pod. I don't think we did. The retained list. Obviously, some air quotes, big names have departed the club, notably Lavery, Ekpieta, Connolly, and Matty Virtue's gone. How are we going to cope without Matty Virtue?
I think we did. Did we not cover it on the last pod briefly? It does ring a very vague bell, but it was a long time ago. I don't think there's any massive surprises in there, is there? Virtue was, a sub. He wasn't a first team starter. Lavery, bit of a shame really, because there's a decent player in there, but I think we talked about this a few times. That injury against Blackburn, and just from then on, it just seemed to be stop-start, didn't it? Particularly hamstring injuries with him, and a player like that, once that happens, it's going to be sort of difficult for him to get back to full form. Again, Connolly, probably not a massive surprise there really that he moved on. He wasn't everyone's favourite, but could cover a number of positions. And obviously Marv, I think we'd have all loved to keep him, but again, it was no massive surprise. He'd kind of hinted that he was going to move on. Maybe surprising where he ended up. It's Hibs, isn't it, in Scotland? I thought he might.
Nick, I wasn't actually bothered that he left. I think I think it comes to a natural conclusion, Marv, at Blackpool. I think it was time to move on and look elsewhere.
Yeah, I think it's another, like a few players, depending on what system and formation we play in. Asking him to bring the ball out and be the ball playing centre half isn't his strength, as we've talked about many times. But out and out defending, for me, is probably one of the first names on the sheet. But yeah,
there's more to the game now these days, isn't there?
There is,
on.
yeah, absolutely. A lot of teams want to play out from the back now, don't they?
I'm getting my under-12s blacks playing out from the back now, Mitch. You should see it. It's an absolute disaster. I abandoned it halfway through and get our hardest kicker just to take goal kicks, and they say, just get it launched.
As a 35 coach, can you explain to me what the point of those goal kicks are, where the goalkeeper, where the two fullbacks stands next to the goalkeeper? And are you doing those?
I might bring it in.
I mean, I get the general gist of playing out from the back. You're trying to draw the other team on, but those particular goal kicks, I've never fathomed why anybody does them.
There's a role there for Carey, then, isn't there, Mitch? That's what he does, rather than sort of getting lost in the middle of the park, dare I say. He can be the creative man from inside the 6-yard box.
Well, please don't speak ill of the League One Phil Foden so early in the season.
Jeezy in the chat says losing Ekpieta is devastating. We'll miss him. Anyone want to pass comments on that?
I just picking up on what Nick said. I think you're right in a sense that there is there's a lot of teams playing differently, but there's also a lot of teams in League One that will shell your box and try and disrupt you with a big lad and play physically. And I think as an out and out defender, Marvin really is a loss. I mean, we'll come to the players we've brought in. Hopefully Baggot has at least some of those attributes Marvin brought. But without Marvin last year, there were times when we looked fragile. And as much as there were times when he didn't necessarily aid what we were trying to do, there were other times when he was absolutely vital to keeping the other team out. And I think the other player we miss is, I don't know how much we actually miss Shane Lavery himself, because he just couldn't stay fit. But I think we do really miss that kind of player. And I think that's still something we've got to replace. So, and I'm sad to see Labs go, because he was a really likable character. He gave absolutely everything. So I was kind of sad for him, and sad that it sort of never really actually worked. It started with a really explosive start, didn't it? When we signed him, he couldn't stop scoring, and then, like Nick said, that injury against Blackburn, we never really saw that same player again, and it was a shame, because I liked him. He seemed a likable human being as well as a footballer.
Matt, anything to add? Callum Connolly leaving the fold, a devastating loss also.
Yeah, I wasn't really surprised overall. Yeah, not really surprised overall with the retained list, if I'm honest. I think, as Nick said earlier, I think a couple of players have sort of come to their natural end, as it were. I think Marv is a good player in the right formation. I just don't think we helped him at all last year. The problem with Keogh, that centre halves partnerships for 3 or 4 months in that championship year, and it was no great surprises to get rid of 1 or 2 players. I always think the retain lists and all the rest of it are great. It's just then a matter of who you want to get in that's improving your squad, and I still think we're a bit light at the moment, especially as Mitch says, lacking of pace really in certain areas, and a bit of creativity as usual.
Okay, that was the main players out. Before we talk about the players that are coming in, obviously we've been chomping at the bit, asking for an experienced pro to join the coaching staff to mix things up a bit and provide a bit of experience from a proper footballer's point of view. And Simon Sadler pulls this out of the bag over the summer. Keogh is back. What's everyone think of that? First team coach.
Well, it gave everyone a lift, didn't it? Because you can't not love Keogh. It's what we've asked for. It's different than we've had before when we've had experience, because I mean Calderwood and McCall had been around the block several times, hadn't they? And we're very, very experienced figures. Keogh couldn't have more experience as a footballer. You know, he something like 650 games as a player, an international player. So he's going to get the respect in the dressing room from the and that kind of know-how that's perhaps been missing, that kind of figure that can, you know, have a word in ears about sort of from his experience, and the players know it's not just kind of technical bullshit that's being spoken to them, or, you know, it's not just sort of coach speak being spoken to them. But it is different than we've had before. And I suppose my one slight worry was when Keogh was interviewed, and he spoke really well, as he always does. He's obviously an intelligent man, but he talked a lot about wanting to learn from Critch, and I was a bit like, no, don't learn from him, change him, you know, which we'll never know, will we, exactly what the dynamic was between Critchley and Calderwood. But there was a lot changed when Calderwood came in, or at least it felt like it changed. I don't know whether that's what we're going to get this time, but certainly that experience and that motivation. He was a really, really good motivator as a player. He was, do you remember when we used to kick off, and he used, just before we kicked off, and he used to get the back four and put his arms around them and be sort of speaking to them, and he'd be, you know, I hope it works. I really, really hope it works, because I don't want, I don't want Keogh's memory sullied by I don't know, 6 months of disastrous football where we're 15th and everybody's on everybody's back. So
I guess we'll see on the 70th minute away at Crawley, won't we? Whether it's made any changes prior or later than that, we'll soon find out how much of an influence he has.
It's funny, wasn't it? Gareth Southgate's substitutions were more or less straight from the playbook, weren't they? 70th minute. It made me laugh in the Spain game. Before they scored their 87th minute winner, didn't he have Conor Gallagher and another defensive player like waiting to come on?
Yeah.
Just before they scored as well, to see the game out. It was so similar, wasn't it? Watching England and Blackpool, obviously on a bit of a shitter scale.
Did you find yourself explaining to people that don't watch Blackpool that this is exactly what it's been like for us?
Every game.
Yeah.
Well, I was in the stadium. I was saying that to an actual Blackpool fan who I met. Who I know. I was just at half time, like having a pint at half time under the stadium at Connolly, just like drinking myself out of the boredom. And someone pointed at me, and I was like, "Ram!" It was Ram Lang. I was like, "Wow, what are you doing here?" It's like, we were discussing like how it's just like watching Blackpool. But the difference was you could drink in the stadium, so it kind of made it a bit more bearable and less tedious. Okay, Nick, Richard Keogh, quick brief thoughts before we move on.
I'd agree with a lot of what Mitch said. He's certainly a character, and it'll give everybody a lift. There's obviously not loads of coaching experience, but there's loads of experience from being a player. And I think someone's mentioned in the chat there, that will hopefully be a good bridge between Critch and the players. And yeah, you just hope we get off to a good start and that it doesn't all go pear-shaped, because I think there's with what happened last season, there probably isn't loads of credit in the bank. With Critch, so hopefully we get off to a good start, and when it goes well, and he's like I say, he's a real character, Critch, Keogh, isn't he? I'm sure he will have a positive influence. It can't be a bad thing. We often talk about coaches and managers kind of being statuesque on the sidelines, and I can't imagine that Uncle Richard will be. I'm sure he'll be very animated and entertaining.
Just a bit of breaking news just come through on our.
Yeah, my
iTunes
phone's
chat.
lighting up from Sunderland stuff about Elliot Embleton. I don't know if it's rumours or there's anything concrete in it.
I spoke to a lad who did. In fact, I've got something as well now. Yeah, I've got a message now saying we've bagged him on a 2-year deal.
Superb. Right, that nicely segues onto new signings. Let's talk about Elliot Embleton. I think it's probably just the sort of player that we need at the moment. So, particularly without Debele, obviously not in the same level as Debele, but a player that can unlock a defence, pick a pass, kind of thing.
Yeah, I guess that's where he's.
Sorry, go on, Matt.
Sorry, I was going to say. I'm guessing that's the. I mean, that is the sort of the whole HOLE position that we need to link the solid midfield that we've obviously got, and presumably Rhodes and another up front. So if we can get what we had from Embleton the first time around again, I think we'll all be happy. I think he had a little. Did he have some injury problems last year? And I don't know. I'm assuming he's fully recovered. I think I'm assuming he's
one game.
Yeah, but he's a good player, and on his days we've seen he's a very clever player as well, isn't he? So if he does come off, then I think he'll be warmly welcomed back at Bloomfield Road.
And I think there's on top of that is he's 25 now, and if he can, he's a player with a lot of abilities. Technically, really good. I mean, he did have that ability to make you go, "Whoa, how did he do that?" and sneak between two players and stuff, and play the pass he didn't see, or we all remember the goal against Oxford, which was an absolute pearler, and he's scored a fair few of those in his career. But he's 25 and he's got a history of injuries. So on the one hand, you go, no, he's 25, he's got a history of injuries. But on the other hand, if he does hit form with us, we're unlikely to, a 20-year-old is going to get snapped off us for straight away. Look how long we kept Josh Bowler for, about 13 months, wasn't it? But Embleton is unlikely to be that player that is immediately stolen from us, because he'll be, 26, 27 and not that hot young prospect. So there's something for that as well. I'm really pleased if it's confirmed. I'm really pleased with that.
I'm just scanning his Wikipedia profile. Do you know how many games he's played since he left us? I don't know if this got to be untrue. One game.
Not many.
No, he got in the Sunderland team. He got into the Sunderland team and actually established himself and was playing really well. Then I think he got an injury, and not an injury at Sunderland, lost his place, went out to Derby, and then was injured again. He definitely got into the Sunderland side after he was with us.
Yeah, I remember seeing him. It says here on 22nd of September 23, Embleton picked up an injury whilst taking a corner kick in a light training session. And then after that, torn his quadriceps out for 3 to 6 months.
It's our sort of signing, though, isn't it? To get somebody with an injury record. It's a bit like a Moneyball sort of optimistic signing, that if we can keep him fit, he'll be fine. But if he breaks down after, 6 minutes in the Crawley away game or something, everyone's rolling their eyes, aren't they? But, let's hope he's fully fit, and I'm sure he'll do a job for us if he's fully fit, no doubt about it.
Maybe he's just coming to do the Matty Virtue role and play between 3 and 17 minutes a week.
Okay. Jordan Rhodes signed permanent deal, 12-month contract. He's obviously 34 now. Nick, your thoughts on Jordan Rhodes coming back in?
Yeah, I don't mind that. We talked last season about when he was in his goal scoring form. I think he's probably one of the most natural finishers we've had at the club in a good number of years. And you saw his goal against Crewe at the weekend. When he's through on goal, there's probably no one else you'd rather have. Picked up a couple of injuries, so it'll be interesting to see whether he stays fit. And if he does, I'm sure he will get into double figures for us this season. I think we need some more pace up there, because if you look at who else is around, I think Josie's got decent pace. Ashley Fletcher, the other signing, probably not so much, but he brings different attributes. So, yeah, I wouldn't, it's not we don't want to put all our eggs in one basket with him, but at this level, if he stays fit and gets service, then he'll score goals.
You've got the added bonus of his influence on the team, haven't you, as well, and his overall experience as well that he brings.
He's like the boring Gary Medine, isn't he, in that respect?
Yeah, I was pleased. I think it's one of the signings we probably all wanted, wasn't it? And it was good that we got it done.
People in the chat seem to be pleased about Jordan Rhodes. Big Dog Walker says Rhodes is a great signing. David Coleman. Hi, David. Rhodes, great goal at Crew. Yeah. Mark GT, please don't leave Rhodes up on his own. Big Dog says
does need someone with him.
Yeah, he does, definitely. And is that person to be Ashley Fletcher? Now, this guy doesn't really come with much pedigree. I was listening to the Not Top 20 pod the other day, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
They were very surprised that we'd signed Ashley Fletcher. Scored 4 goals since 2021. I just looked him up. So seems a bit of could be a bit of a Marmite signing there.
Yeah, I was in the immigration queue at Brussels airport in just when the World Cup was on. Not that I was going to Germany, I was going to Belgium, and there was a couple of lads with England tops on. Queue in the queues, just having a quick chat with them. Obviously, they were going to one of the matches, and they were both Sheffield Wednesday fans, and got talking. He said, "Oh, you've just signed Ashley Fletcher, haven't you?" He said, "Yeah, he's slower than this bloody queue, mate." So, so that was his overriding sort of opinion of it, and I was like, oh, "Christ, not another one." So I'll wait.
Not the perfect foil for Jordan Rhodes, then, Matt.
No, not really. No, not really. You do need. I think that's our concern, isn't it? Generally, that we are lacking a little bit of movement up front, and that the way we seem to be playing the game over the last sort of 12 months or so, it's a bit methodical, and whether we're going to have anybody that can run over the ball over the top or just outstrip a centre half, I don't know, but we'll give it a bit of time and see whether we can get the best out of Rhodes again. I hope he is another one that stays fit, and if Ashley Fletcher can come off the bench, presumably more often than not, and help out in any particular way, let's hope he gets more than 4 goals in 2 seasons or whatever it was.
The 4 goals since 2021. He even didn't score. He even didn't score at New York Red Bulls.
He's been at some clubs, hasn't he, though? That's weird. It's like, I really can't understand why we've signed him and what he brings to the party or what he does. I don't really get it. But he has been at some clubs, and he's been at Watford, he's been at Sunderland, he's played quite a few championship games. But he doesn't seem to score goals or set goals up. So you end up going, well, what does he do? But, I mean, what I will say is that I spent a good number of podcasts berating people for being idiots, for not seeing the fact that Gary Medine's goal machine nickname was slightly ironic, and he didn't really assist many either, that they weren't seeing the true brilliance of that footballer. So I'm hoping that there's some kind of depth to Ash Fletcher's game that I haven't really noticed yet. I did a thing for Roker Report, and I was chatting to the lad who did that with, and he seemed to think Fletcher was decent. So, and I did ask him what he does, and he said, "Oh, he just puts himself about a bit up front."
Oh, you'll love him then. You will absolutely love him.
Hopefully.
I mean, it's true to say we were definitely lacking somebody who was able to do that last year.
Yeah.
Put himself about a bit of a physical presence. So, who knows? It could be our the next Medine Mark II or whatever. Who knows?
Mitch, I have to ask, is that?
It's not red wine. I know where you're going here, Nick. I saw the comment. It's
Wigan Malbec.
It's a bottle of Blonde Witch.
Oh well, very good choice. Very good choice.
And I'm just on Vimto or whatever brand it is.
It's Big Sam bought you a bottle, has he, mate?
A pint of wine.
Yeah, get it in a dimpled pint glass.
Yeah, I'll be hauled off after the pod for scurrilous allegations, and you'll have to replace me with a. I don't know.
But
an
my
internal
two
affair.
penneth worth on Fletcher. I think, like Mitch says, that that physical presence. There was quite a few games last season where we said it was a game for Gary Medine, where you just needed somebody to hold it up a bit and put himself about, and hopefully that's what he will bring. And there will be games where you need, you do need something different. I think Kouassi doesn't. I've not seen all of the pre-season games, but he doesn't seem to be about. Is he injured or is he just out of the picture at the moment?
Not sure.
No. So if Kouassi's not going to be involved, then we probably are lacking a bit of physicality, aren't we? So hopefully that will come from Ash Fletcher and Joseph as well. It was such a stop-start season for him last year. Hopefully, it's kind of make or break probably for his Blackpool career this next season. And saw the Crew game, took his goal really, really well. It was a very, very good finish. And I know it's only a friendly, but that'll have given him, a bit of confidence that he would have been lacking after last season. And I really, really hope he comes good for us, because there's a decent player in there. He puts himself about. He's got a really good work rate, and hopefully, if he gets his chance, he'll score a few goals for us.
Okay, moving on. Zac Ashworth is a left back. 6 international caps for the Welsh and under 21s. Played for Bolton last season on loan. From West Brom. Again, we can't really pass comment on these players until we see him in the flesh, can we? I mean, I don't know if anyone else has been like this, but we've had the Euros, now we've got the Olympics, and it's been DBA with Blackpool FC for at least 6 to 8 weeks.
There is a general sort of malaise, isn't there, about the whole situation? And yeah, I mean, Zac Ashworth, know nothing about him. I'll be brutally honest. I think the interesting thing is he's a left-sided wing back type of player, as far as we can read. So what that means is whether he's going to play instead of maybe Husband, or in addition to Husband, and maybe instead of Coulson now and again. He might just be a squad player. I just hope he gets some game time, because he's got a decent pedigree, and he's got, however many Welsh under 21 caps, as you say, behind him. So he's obviously got some talent about him. You just don't want to see him sort of labouring on the bench every week, and hopefully he'll get his opportunity if he's deemed good enough. But we'll see. I
know some Bolton fans were a bit disappointed they hadn't picked him up. They thought he did quite well there. So that's encouraging. And I've seen a little bit of him in pre-season where he's not, it's pre-season, isn't it? But he's looked okay. He's got up and down. He's looked very athletic. He's quite tall for a wing-back type. So I don't know whether he can also play in that back three role as well. But he certainly looked like he's got a bit of intent about him anyway.
Which game was
I think
that?
The good thing for me is, sorry.
Sorry, go on, Nick. No.
Go on, Nick.
I was just going to say, the good thing is you've got a player playing in his natural position, rather than trying to shoehorn somebody in out of the position, which is what we saw last season. So that's a decent starting point. Probably between him and Coulson, isn't it? I think who'll start. And ideally, you want 2 players for each position wherever possible. So, and he's a young lad with potential. He's played at this level, so hopefully he'll do well for us.
We've omitted to talk about Jimmy Husband, who's obviously signed a contract extension after a bit of negotiation. Where does he fit into this system? Is he a nailed-on starter?
Well, he's captain, isn't he? I think. Sorry.
Yeah, he is. He's just taken over the captaincy. Norburn's resigned it, hasn't he?
Has he really?
Yeah, there was the Critch did an interview the day saying basically Norben didn't want to be captain. He wanted to focus on his football, and he felt that something along, I'm paraphrasing, but something along the lines that he felt that being captain had taken too much from his own game last year, and he didn't particularly enjoy the responsibility.
Fair enough.
That's very honest.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, let's hope Jimmy plays as well as he did at the first half of last season, because he dropped off a bit towards the end of the season. I've just noticed on the couple of friendlies he did watch, he was dropping a few clangers, so let's hope he gets those out of the way.
He's just getting his eye in.
Yeah, get your eye in. Hayden Coulson. I was a bit surprised about this one, Matt. Smith. I was very surprised that we'd sign him. Didn't think he'd be the type of player that we would be signing on a perm. So it was a refreshing change to see this deal done.
Yeah, a funny one for me, really. So I thought he sort of blew a bit hot and cold, and then but when he blew hot, he was pretty warm, wasn't he? He did all right for us in the end. There were a few games where I just thought he was, fairly anonymous, but that was probably typical of the whole season, quite frankly, with the whole squad. So I think he was definitely worth pursuing. As we've just alluded to about Zac Ashworth, it's another square peg in a square hole, as opposed to what we've had prior to hopefully prior to this season anyway. So yeah, I hope he'll kick on and do well for us. He's another one of those that has got a lot to prove, I would imagine. He's been let go by a team from a higher level, I'm optimistic that he'll create some chances for us and score one or two as well.
He scored 2 goals for us, didn't he, as well last season?
Yeah, he scored a belter towards the end of the season when at home. He hit the roof of the net from 20 yards out or whatever it was. I think he was just sort of getting into the swing of things, and the season sort of ended for him.
Yeah. I remember slagging him off when we first got him. I thought, what does he actually do, this guy? What was he?
I was the same. I'll be brutally honest. So we went away to, I think one of his earlier games might have been Bristol Rovers, and he'd had like one or two decent runs, and then just disappeared. And he disappeared a few times, it has to be said. But like I said, I think he sort of got to grips with things as his season progressed. So hopefully he'll kick on from August as opposed to April.
Mitch, I remember you describing him as like a Bulgarian IPA drinking, cigarette rolling hipster, didn't you?
I said he looked like he looked like he'd set up his own craft brewing company. You see these people who've got a story in the paper that have set up, myself and my uni pal Tristan set up, and they've all always got a beard and one of them Alice bands in, and they're pictured in front of their stills on their farm they inherited. And I thought he looked a bit like that. But I like him, mate. I like him. I think he doesn't overcomplicate it. He's direct. I think he's like a number of our players in that he's not necessarily a player that will grab the game by the scruff of the neck and make it happen, but he's a player that I think that if others grab the game by the scruff of the neck and feed him and we can be dominant in midfield, I think he'll be a really good option for us. I like him overall. I agree he wasn't 100% consistent, but I think overall he's a player of quality. And again, he's just of that age where it's kind of now or never really for his professional career. If he can do it with us, then he's still got a chance of a decent future. If he doesn't do it with us, then where's his next move going to be? It's going to be to Accrington or somewhere and fizzle out. So
Brewdog, maybe they'll might take him on. Farmyard Brewery, is it?
Much
who make their very palatable Seasiders ale, which you can get under the stands at Bloomfield Road, which is the mirror opposite to the, how can I describe this? Fizzy, ice cold, stale tea, otherwise known as John Smith's. That I've now noticed is £5 for a pint of that. I don't know if there's honestly the new prices Someone posted a picture of the new prices at the kiosk at Bloomfield. It's now £5 minimum, I think, for a pint. Bottles of Coke are now £3.
You know, you can get the real stuff cheaper than that in the North Stand.
I occasionally have a John Smith because it just reminds me of bad pubs in the 1990s. It reminds me of pubs where they'd let you in even though they knew you were 15.
Serving that
John
shite.
Smiths and bodies.
And harp.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's not harp on about shitty, overpriced. See what I did there. Alcoholic beverages at the stadium. Let's move on to Lee Evans, not the comedian Lee Evans, but the footballer Lee Evans. Now I've got a bit of intel from him, from Barry from the Wigan pod. I asked him. He said, Lee Evans, excellent with us, plus stuck around during the admin season and played a massive part in keeping us up. Technically very good, great passer and can hit a long ranger. Set piece taker, free kicks and corners. Not the fastest though, but I suspect that's due to time out with injury. Keeping fit and will be a very, very good player at League One level. Bags of experience. Played for Wales a couple of times as well. So, anyone know this player and seen him? Or Nick, you were going to say something?
Not particularly, other than he seems to have a very good CV in terms of playing for teams and getting promoted. So let's hope that he adds Blackpool to his list for that. What I've seen of him in pre-season, he looks decent. He keeps the game ticking over. He's got a good tempo, and I think he'll be a very decent signing at this level. What that means for Norburn, whether you need him alongside him, I don't know. I think possibly Evans and maybe somebody a bit more attacking would be ideal, but I think he's a very good player, and like I say, he's got a few promotions under his belt, so that experience can be no bad thing.
Okay.
What I was going to say, what I've seen of him in pre-season, I've been really impressed. I've really enjoyed watching him play, and I think there's been a lot of positivity about him, and maybe he'll free Norburn up a bit. Because we haven't seen the Norburn that played for Peterborough, have we? We haven't seen the Norburn that we're all really excited about signing, and maybe Norburn's been shoehorned into that 6 role. Maybe Evans fits there. Maybe sometimes you put Evans in with Norburn. If you can get a season out of Evans, maybe sometimes you put Morgan in there if you want a slightly more attacking player, and then you have Embleton or Carey in a kind of 10 type role. I don't know, but that centre of midfield does look quite promising, I think, if those players stay fit. And I think Evans, I'm really positive about that, as long as he doesn't blow up after 2 games.
Kenny Dougal replacement. So Kenny Dougal replacement, perhaps.
I think he's a different player than Kenny Dougal. I think he's more of a player who can play more of that kind of quarterback role that
Norburn should be doing. That Norburn, the player that we wanted him to be, kind of thing.
Yeah, perhaps.
Elkan Baggot signed today, wasn't it? Was it today or yesterday?
Yesterday, last night.
Yesterday, yeah. Centre half on loan from Ipswich, a bit of a unit apparently, and an Indonesian international player.
Seems to be a player we've been trying to get for, I think, at least one transfer window anyway. So obviously losing Marv, as we mentioned earlier, needed another centre half to come in. Physical specimen by all accounts, so physicality shouldn't be a problem.
6'5", Matty is.
Yeah, only a young lad though, 21, but he's got a little bit of lower league experience, so he won't be shoved around or anything like that. Hopefully, he'll make a good impression and help that very solid defence be even more brick-like solid.
Oh, he's played 19 games under Steve Evans at Gillingham. He's a very Steve Evans player, isn't he? 6.5 foot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. He probably takes the throw-ins or something as well.
2 goals from 19 appearances. Not
He
to be
was at
sniffed
Bristol
at.
Rovers last, wasn't he? Is that
Yeah.
right?
He was, yeah.
Yeah.
He was last season, yeah.
Well,
They said he had a bit of a ropey start, but then he was really impressive once he'd got settled in. And he's obviously good in the air, but very mobile for his height. And I mean, that sounds basically like Marvin, doesn't it? Bit of a ropey start until he gets settled in and in his groove, and then he's very mobile and good in the air. That, you know, it sounds very Ekpieta-esque.
But can he dribble it out from the back?
Well.
That's what we want to know.
what's he like at keeping possession and passing it from the left side of our third to the right side of our third on repeat?
That's exactly it.
Get it launched. They'll just be banging it out Fletcher, haven't we? We've got these tactics from earlier.
That's right.
And obviously we've got Rob Apter coming back. Mitch, I know you're looking forward to Apter being unleashed. This is providing obviously he's not loaned out to another League Two club before the start of the season.
Well, if he is, I'll implode. No, I mean we've had it. Somebody said in the comments earlier. I'm sorry, I can't remember who, but said, you know, we're light of creativity, and I think Apter is the one player. Or I think somebody said Embleton's not really that Debele kind of player, and he's not. Apter is that one game-changing magic Debele bowler type player. But I think, even though I've just literally done it myself, I think we've got to be careful in assuming that Rob's going to do what Debele did last year. For a start, they're not the same kind of player. Apter's played most of his football wide, cutting in and sort of essentially being a winger that cuts inside and gets shots away, whereas Caddy played sort of a very central role for us. From what I've seen in pre-season, Apter's I wouldn't say struggled in that 10 role, but he hasn't been Debele in that 10 role. But he played, he came on at wing back in the last game, the Crew game, I think it was one of the games anyway. And I thought he looked a lot more comfortable there. My main worry is the way the setup suits him. Is that I worry that we end up having a really good player that we don't quite know how to use. But I think he's definitely a point of difference, and we need that. How many times last year did we say things like we've just got a whole squad of players and they're all very samey? And I think Apter is that point of difference, who can bring that magic. So hopefully he hits the ground running and makes himself an essential part of it all. I just don't quite know where he fits.
Yeah. Squad strengths and weaknesses. I've spelled that wrong, so I'll redo it. Chaps, where are we strong? Where are we weak? Where do we need to strengthen?
I think, you know, Grimmy and Nats, he's decent at this level, isn't he? I think defensively we're looking with the signing of Baggott this week. We've got wing backs who can play in the natural position. I think Evans is a great signing in midfield. Obviously, Jordan Rhodes is very experienced. I think weaknesses, pace for me is a bit of a concern. I mean, you know, the transfer window's not closed yet, so we will see. But if you look at the decent teams in this league, just how quickly they move the ball around. And, you know, we know last season we were quite ponderous, weren't we? And I think the main thing for me is that we've addressed the Achilles heel of last season, which was we were so poor against the poorer teams. We know we could mix it with the best teams when we were on our game, but it was those 6, 7, 8, 9 games where we were just terrible and we were so easy to work out. So we need to be a bit less ponderous than we were last season. I think if we did get Embleton, that would be decent. But I think pace is the thing for me. Is my biggest one, I think, in terms of weakness at the moment. But there is still time. I know we've got CJ who's very, very quick, but you know, inconsistent with it. So that's probably it for me. And also, if you know, Fletcher hasn't got a great goal scoring record. Joseph was in and out last season. I really, like I said before, I really hope he does get a few goals. But that's the other thing. What will we get from midfield? You probably need that 6, 7, 8 goal midfielder from somewhere, which can be the difference between a top 10 or a top 6 finish. So that's probably the two things for me.
Matt, over to you. Your thoughts on where we're weak, where we're strong?
Can't disagree with any of that, really. I had concerns last year. I still have concerns, even though we've got Rhodes in from August, that we just don't have enough goals in our squad at all, really. There's a hell of a lot of experience in there now, but there just isn't the goals. And if Joseph doesn't fire and if Rhodes gets injured, we're back to square one again. So I hope there's still some sort of irons in the transfer bag fire that we can get someone else in that can provide us with a little bit more mobility and firepower. Because I do have concerns that we will be, when we need to, we'll struggle with not making enough opportunities. We just didn't do that last year. I can't see what's changed or what might change this year so far. So those are my sort of concerns, really. Strengths wise, I think we're pretty solid, generally speaking. We can keep the ball, we know that. It's just what we do with it. Hopefully we can get a better attitude away from home, because God knows what was going on last year. So let's start with a win away from home, and then we can take it from there. Sorry, phone.
Neil, I've told you, don't phone during the podcast. Mitch, over to you. Strengths and weaknesses.
Well, exactly as what was said before: pace, and pace. The irony is that probably the CJ, we can't do without CJ, because he is the pace in the squad, or a massive part of the pace in the squad. But technically, he's perhaps problematic in playing that swift passing style game, or can be when it's not his day. But the other thing as well is, we keep talking about, well, we want to replace Debele. I don't think you can replace Debele. I would like some more creativity in the squad, but I'd also like some more creativity from the touchline. I'd like us to be, what Debele brought was a scheming kind of canny determination to unpick a defence no matter what. He'd go here, he'd go there, he'd try this, he'd try that, he'd run, he'd drop deep, he'd drop into holes, he'd chip the ball, he'd spin, he'd roll on the floor between players' legs. He'd do anything to try and unpick that lock. And without Debele, I'd like to see, from the touchline, I'd like to see Critchley be that little bit more imaginative with us as a unit, and try some different things. And I think, I can see us actually with, depending on who else we sign, it would be really interesting to see what a front three looked like on occasion. It'd be really interesting to see what actually happened if you brought Apter on the wing and had somebody else on the other wing and went, just go for it. And, we need that as well. It's not just about players. It's not just about the makeup of the squad. It's about how you put those players out and how you inspire those players to go and try and win a game come what may. And of course, we're going to lose games next year. We're not going to beat everybody 5-0. But what I'd really like to see is less of those games where it feels as if we've just given up because we don't know how to win that game. And there were too many games like that. I think we all went to those games where you just kind of, you hit this point where you just thought, they don't think they're going to score, and we didn't score. And I don't want that Blackpool this season.
Yeah. Nicely segues us onto the next section. Thoughts on the new season and position predictions. I mean, me personally, Matt's used that Timism very relevantly before, a general malaise. I don't know a pre-season where I've been that disinterested in everything that's been going on behind the scenes at Blackpool, and I know I'm not alone in thinking like this. A lot of people, well, not a lot of people, quite a few people I know haven't renewed the season tickets for financial reasons, and I just think there's a real downbeat attitude amongst the fan base at the moment, and it really needs a spark from somewhere to reignite the passion that we've seen at Bloomfield Road over the last few years. I don't know if anyone else feels the same.
Yeah, I think like you said, there's a bit probably a hangover from last season where it was a bit formulaic, and even some of the wins weren't particularly exciting, and then the ticket prices, which I'm not going to go over again, but I think there was a missed opportunity there to kind of get a real feel-good factor, have a bit of a reset, sell a really good number, get the ground packed and buzzing. So I think it's kind of a combination of things, and ultimately, if we start well and win games of football, a lot of that will be forgotten. But if we don't, I don't think it will take too long before things maybe turn a bit in the stands. Hopefully, that won't happen. But yeah, I think it's just a bit of a hangover of the kind of the football of last season. And yeah, we only just missed out on the playoffs, but we weren't really a top 6 side, I don't think. And it was the style of play as well. So I think that's going to have a big part to play. If we play front foot football and we're trying to be attacking and not just all about, well, we had the possession and didn't do a lot with it. Because people soon get quite bored with that. So I just think it's that combination of things really, where it's just made people feel a little bit flat. And like you say, people who've been going for a long time have decided not to renew for different reasons. But I just think we need to get off to a good start and hopefully get the momentum from there.
Mitch, Mark's put, it all hangs on the early results and most importantly, performances. I think that's the key.
Yeah.
The key issue, isn't it? And intent.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's it's stupid to be saying, if by October the 17th we're not this position in the league. But I think it's down to whether we've seen. Critchley spoke really well, didn't he, at the fans forum? I think he certainly. I know Raggy was Raggy has been perhaps not always the most complimentary of Critch. Thought he spoke well and said on the night that he thought Critch had spoke well, and I thought the same. But it's about actually seeing it. Critch, you can say over and over again, well, I want us to be a team we can all be proud of, as I want to play front foot football. I want the same thing as you. And it is a bit shit or bust now on that idea. Last year, okay, it had been a shambles. He'd come in on the back of Appleton and McCarthy and what was a really disastrous season, and we'd lost a big chunk of the loan players from that squad, and he'd had to rebuild and so on and so forth. So there were some mitigating factors last year, but this year he really does need to produce. And I think what people want more than anything is they want a bit of excitement, they want a bit of attacking, they want a bit of aggression, they want a bit of bravery from a team. I don't mind losing games of football. I hate losing games of football where for the last 25 minutes you just stand there and drum your fingers and think like that because nothing happens. That's rubbish, So yeah, I agree with Mark totally. It's about style as much as it is about the results, I think.
Matt, over to you.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. Just sort of brings me back to when I was at that fans forum and Simon Sadler said, what do you want, entertaining football or results? Well, a bit of both would be good, thanks. Not being greedy or anything particularly, but it is a funny one in terms of we are, I think, a bit of a sort of a, I don't know, almost in a cul-de-sac now with the club in terms of the manager, the way we're playing. The fans are getting a little bit more restless, and the season hasn't begun yet. We've got, I think, mainly one of the reasons I think also was that last season we all thought it was the big opportunity. There weren't any massive teams in that division last year, particularly. No one to fear. Whereas this year we've got, big spending Wrexham coming up. We've got Stockport who are going to be on a bit of a bounce as well after a couple of promotions. We've got Huddersfield, Birmingham and Rotherham coming down. All three of them are making waves in the transfer window. And, then we've got the likes of Bolton and Charlton and one or two others as well. So it's a much tougher division So whether we've got enough about us and on and off the pitch to compete with all that, I'm not so sure. But you know, as a half glass empty sort of individual, that's probably not a surprise coming from me, really.
Although you did say earlier that we mix it with the big teams much better. So logically, the better the division is, the more chance we've got of promotion. Going up as champions.
I like your logic. I like your logic. So, put a number on it, gentlemen. Nick, where are we going to finish next season? And everyone in the comments, in your comments, put your numbers in.
Heart says 6th. Head says 8th.
Well, we don't care what the heart says. It's the head. It's the logical reasoning.
Yeah.
I had 12 in my head. I had originally said 18.
No, better than 12.
I think we should ask again at the end of the transfer window, just in case we pull some rabbits out of hats. But at the moment, I'm going 8th.
Sandrine Army says 8th and not move all season.
Yeah. Not beyond the realms of possibility.
I'd almost enjoy that if it becomes like this massive tension about will we manage to be 8th by the end of the game. If we're throwing games because it looks like we're going to move up the league and stuff. Grimmy's just chucking it in the net.
Yeah.
It's difficult to for many, I would think, to look at playoff positions.
Not for Rich Hensall, Matt.
I did say for many, you know, so you'll always get the odd one or two.
Ray said 6th as well. You've been on the.
I mean, I said 2nd last year, for crying out loud.
Tim said top. Tim said champion.
Yeah, well, there you go. So I might as well say 23rd this year, and we might finish 2nd. Who knows?
Using reverse psychology there, are you?
Yeah.
I always thought that was what Tim was most angry about in the season. It wasn't where we played. It was the fact that I said we were going to go up.
I can't disagree with around about that sort of 7th to 10th sort of position. Really, I can't see how we're going to get that extra 10 or 15 points or whatever we were missing last year at the moment based on the current squad. But like you say, we've got 3 weeks left of the transfer window, and who knows what will happen in January. And you know, other teams will have moments of self-imploding and injuries and all the rest of it. But yeah, as it stands, I think I'd be looking somewhere about 9th, let's say.
Well, that's what my head prediction was as well. But I've just got this weird feeling that we're going to finish 4th. So I always find it really hard. Well, I find it really hard predicting your own team because it's you're supposed to be objective, like you're like.
So we get that laughing sound effect.
But you're not, are you? I think we've got a couple more players to come in, and I think it's shit or bust for Critchley, and I think he's got to pull out a bit more creativity than last year. He's got, he's not going to get the patience from upstairs. He's got to be a little bit more imaginative. And I think we keep saying there's these really, really good teams, but some of them, you always get a couple of teams that come down and they struggle in this division and it all goes wrong for them. So, if we can be there or thereabouts, we come into January. Sadler gets a little bit tempted. He's been under a bit of pressure. He gets his checkbook out to buy a bit of love. We go on, we go on. We finish 4th. We go to Wembley. We're in the Championship. We win that, etc., etc. We eventually win the World Club Cup in about 2029.
Yeah, and we play some far off 4th Leipzig team in the Europa team. Whatever it's called.
Yeah. I'm like a shit pound shop raggy with that one.
Cycle through some of the predictions. So Tony 8th, Bill Ormby 5th, Craig 13th, Alex is 9th, Mark 8th, another 8th, 6th, David Coleman, third. Matthew Warren to 10 or 14. Come on, Matthew, you can't have two entries. Play the game. Barry Roberts, fifth. Race is 6. Lee's 12th. Chris 10th. Gricey says, pushing for 8th, but disappointing 9th. It's quite optimistic for Gricey, actually. Quite surprised.
It is,
It is.
missing a one-off.
He's got a one-off missing.
Yeah, his one's fallen off his keyboard.
He's frantically pressing it, trying to clean it.
Andy, just get some super glue that one back on.
He played too much Daley Thompson.
Getting into the Olympic spirit for those of a certain vintage, obviously.
So much depends on injuries, doesn't it, as well? I mean, how many of our signings did we go, if they stay fit, it'll be a good signing? And there's a few in the squad already that you caveat with, if they stay fit, there'll be a decent player. We've got some good players. And I think that's it. There's such a variation on predictions. And, if those key players stay fit and we hit form, great. If they don't, we could be 15th, couldn't we?
Shall we have a look at this League One influencer chart that Tom kindly procured for us?
Yeah, are there any Blackpool fans on it?
What, League One influencers? No, there's not.
No, that's weird.
I thought someone might be on there. No sign. We've got Gab Sutton, Real EFL, the line at the top 20, the 92 Bible, the 6-pointer. Nappers is on there. Ben Bloom, that's Benjamin Bloom. Don't know the other one. For the benefit of the audio pod, what this is, all the premier influencers on League One content have all put their predictions in 1 to 24 of where all the teams will finish. And we have Blackpool in 8th, 10th, 11th, 5th. Who said that? The 92 Bible had us 5th. The 6-pointer had us 14th. Nappers had us 9th.
He's bitter.
What does that one say? I can't even read it. Jake Johnson, something or other.
JK analysis.
Whatever that is. 10th.
JK Rowling football.
Mr. Bloom had us in 10th. So I think that's probably about right, actually, what we can see there. And interestingly, pretty much every one of them's got Crawley finishing bottom, which again nicely segues us on to Crawley away just before we go. An interesting piece of information I heard about them was they've got an algorithm, a model, if you will, that they used last season to pick the perfect player for the perfect position using the amount of money they had available, and it spat out this list of players, and they went and bought them, and they absolutely stormed to promotion and won the league last year. But they've lost all those players now, and they're saying, can the algorithm weave its magic again this season? But a lot of these key League One influencers don't seem to think so. They've had a huge turnover of players, so is this the game where we finally put in a good performance and win away from home on the first day of the season? And is anyone going? Is anyone mad enough to be going?
No, I'm not. But it's interesting that they went down the data-led model, because that's something I think we've talked about at Blackpool, haven't we? Following, computer spreadsheets or whatever. But yeah, Saturday, I think I'm gonna be optimistic. Start the season, like you say, they've lost quite a few players over the summer. I had a look on their forum, and they don't seem particularly confident on there. I think they've talked about the defence being poor. They've let in quite a lot of goals. So I'm going to go for a 1-0 win. Kyle Joseph to hit the back of the net. Get your fiver on it.
They've got a player called Gavan Houlihan, almost Houlihan. It's Houlihan. And he's Irish.
See the Irish lad who was at Derby?
No,
that's who
No.
Rhodes, isn't it?
he's
That's
just gone to Barnsley.
I was going to say he's gone somewhere else. Yeah.
Alfie May's gone to Birmingham, hasn't he? Just no, it's not the other. Anyway, sorry.
Birmingham has spent 14 million quid.
They've put a lot of foreign players in.
Mad, isn't it, for League One? They bought 3 keepers. Why do they need 3 keepers? Anyway, we digress. Sorry, Matt.
Yeah, sorry. I was going to say the same actually, Nick. In terms of the scoreline, I think we'll just have enough through possibly Rhodes or Joseph, or hopefully a little bit of quality. I did watch the Crew friendly the other day, and I hadn't watched any of the other games, but I was actually quite pleased with what I saw in terms of the way we moved the ball quickly. And Crew were obviously Crawley's opponent in the playoff final last year, weren't they? I think. And I was just thinking, that's maybe deliberate while we're playing them, possibly, in that they'll be as close as we can get to playing Crawley pre-season. And they didn't have a sniff, really, Crew, that is. So if we can play like that and an extra 10%, hopefully, I can't believe I'm saying this, it'll be a comfortable away win. But I don't think it'll be a comfortable by many goals. So I'll go for 1-0 as well. At 97% possession.
This is close alphabetically as well as league position.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm going for 79 possession. I think we should not do score predictions. I think we should do possession predictions from now on. 79%, because the actual score doesn't matter. It's all about the possession. So I'm going to go for 79% and 0-0.
We should make an ongoing graphic of how close we are to 8th at any point, to our target position of 8th.
I reckon there's something in that, We'll do a possession versus points table as we go through the season. I'm making a note.
You are a numbers man by trade, Matt, so you're the man for the job, I think. Right, Mitch, see us out with a bit of wild optimism.
Right, 4-1. Ash Fletcher's going to get a brace. He's going to run with lift his shirt over the head and go with a big thing saying, "Fuck you, John Aspinall," on his top. I am a goal machine, and a legend will be born.
Hang on a minute, what have I done? What have I done?
Well,
I've just been giving information.
All right,
don't shoot the messenger.
Then. Whatever. So that's going to be the start of it. Carl Joseph will score because he's in. I think Joseph. I'm hopeful Joseph is going to show the player he is this season. So I'm going to put him down. And Sonny's going to score an absolute cracker. Just because I say that every week, because that's what I want to happen every week. 4-1 up the pool. It will absolutely blow them away. You can judge for yourself how much I truly believe that and how much I'm playing a role.
Right, on that note, I think we'll leave it there. Just before I go, we've got another giveaway coming up. We obviously had our World Cup sweepstake, which was won by Gary Ford. Sorry, Gary, it's your brother John Ford. He scooped the 50 quid for getting Spain to beat England. Jordan Sen scooped the second 30 quid. So yeah, we've got a lot of giveaways coming up this season for our patrons. You see on the banner below, patreon.com/SeasidersPod. We've got a signed shirt coming up next from last season, so that's going to be up for grabs. If you are watching this on YouTube, do subscribe. We're over 1,700 subscribers now, so exponential growth in full force. 2,000 by the end of the season. So here's hoping. Right. Yeah, been a pleasure to have you on again, gents, as usual. And as I'm putting in filler words to try and get the outro music. There we go.
So we're gonna have to sing it then.
God, that we'll have 1,700 unsubscribers then.
Got a beautiful singing voice, Nick. I'll have you know. A man of many talents. Okay, so yeah, thanks for coming on, gents. Thanks for listening, everybody, this evening. We'll be coming back with a reaction show after the Crawley game. The reaction shows may be coming on Mondays now because I've moved my kids' training session to more palatable time, so I'll probably be free to do those on Mondays. So yeah, watch out for that. So yeah, all right, said everybody. Thanks for watching. Thanks for downloading. Here's the 24-25 8th season of Blackpool. Up the pool. Up the
Up the
eights.
pool.
Up the pool.
Crazy eights.